So that, yes, again, the challenges that young people face with alcoholism and drug addiction in this society. And just to continue our discussion that we started earlier on, we look at the family dynamics. Now, we know that alcoholism and drug addiction is hereditary. So that if you, as a parent, know that you have ancestors who were addicted to alcohol or drugs, then you have to look at your own uh, propensity to become addicted and also your children. So that should be a red flag for families who have a history of alcoholism in their family. Because the same way we inherit our ethnicity, our complexion, our height, our mannerisms from our ancestors, so too we can inherit that genetic predisposition to alcoholism or drug addiction. So that if you have a history on your father's side or mother's side of alcoholism, because I see it all the time in my practice, in doing an evaluation, that is one of the questions I would ask, whether there's a history of alcoholism and drug addiction or mental illness. Because if you have that history, you can become predisposed. So it is important that what happens in the family. Now, this thing about do as I say and not as I do. I know of adults who are drinking, and I've seen this happen, but scolding their children for wanting to take a drink. I see young people hiding and taking a drink, and the parents trying to scold them, but you don't have a message if you don't have a moral authority to tell your child not to drink if you are drinking. And while you may not be alcoholic, because alcoholism could skip a generation, as it happened in my case. My father was not an alcoholic or mother, but my grandfather was an alcoholic. I can say that. And yes, he was a really nice person, but I inherited that predisposition. So that I started out drinking out of curiosity, like I said earlier on, to be one of the group, cool, with my friends. But then realized later on that I could use it to help me to cope. I, being a very introverted kind of person at the outset, felt that when I take a few drinks, I could be very, very outgoing. I could be the butterfly in the party. I could ask the girl to dance. So that we are living in a family where if there's a high incidence of drinking and drug use, and when I say drug use, I also mean the medicine cabinet. We have a tendency to, not regard that as being bad. But our children see us all the time going to the medicine cabinet and taking sleeping pills and taking tranquilizers. And some of us discuss it openly with our friends. They hear us and they learn these things that later on as adults, when they have difficulty to cope, they go and take one. I have seen it happen not too long ago, in families that had were dealing with a death, and a lot of people get into the habit, well, give them something, to sleep so they could cope with the loss and all of that. I dare say that that is very, very inappropriate and dangerous because somebody could sleep away and miss the whole funeral of their loved one. Besides, they can overdose themselves under grief. People don't think straight. They can become even suicidal themselves. So that you have to be very, very careful what you advising and what you're doing. So again, it is what is common in the family. A lot of families, I know it is, I mean, that is the culture. If we're having a fete, we can have a fete without drinking. And I can tell you that because I have family members and now because I don't drink, I don't get invited. And I don't mind at all. But because that is the culture, this is the only way they know how to enjoy themselves. But there is the downside to those things. So that we also know that there are biological factors that can affect a person's way they tolerate alcohol. Women do not tolerate alcohol as efficiently as men. especially at the onset. And there can be much more far-reaching effects for women, teenage girls in particular, drinking alcohol. I remember as president of the National Council on Alcoholism, we did several peer training programs in schools, secondary schools, and we all constantly had requests from several schools to come and speak to the sixth formers and the younger ones as well. There's a high incidence, and I've heard it from people firsthand that, at secondary school in junior sec, they would go behind the school, they would bring alcohol in the chubby bottles, and they'll go behind the school and get high. And nobody knew. And if anybody decided to speak, it would cause there was bullying, there was threats, and a lot of socially deviant behavior going on in schools because of drinking and drug use. And this continues as we speak. I don't think that people, as I say that, I remember my own son going to Naparima Boys, and I had heard in those days that Naparima Boys, there are some of them who would go down to Flat Rock in South and smoke up the marijuana. I don't know if it's happening now. As a result of that, when I would I was a single parent, and when I putting his clothes in the machine to wash, I would turn his pockets over and smell them to see if he carried any cigarette or marijuana. I will check his bags. And yes, he caught me doing it one day and he said, "But Daddy, what you doing?" I said, "Son, I'm checking to see if you carry cigarettes or marijuana in your pockets." He said, "You don't trust me?" I said, "Yes, I trust you, but I want to continue to trust you. This is why I'm doing this. I'm doing this because I didn't have anybody to check on me, and that's why I went the wrong way. I don't want you to go the wrong way." And these are the kind of honest discussions we need to have with our children, you know, so that coming back to now, yes, as I said earlier on, if there's a history of drinking and drug use in the family, then there could be a biological predisposition to drink using drugs. Now, the difficulty here is that especially young children, they know they shouldn't be drinking or smoking marijuana. They know of the stigma associated, even for adults. Even adults who are going down the tubes, as I say, they still do not want to admit that they have a problem with drinking or drug use. Can you imagine how difficult it would be for a young person who has become addicted or dependent on drugs to admit it? Because a lot of people, and even now, they will tell you, they think that alcoholism in particular, because the mean age for addiction to alcohol is around 35, they say that is for old people. Going to Alcoholics Anonymous meetings for old people. Young people, I am not like that. I don't have that problem. And so they don't come forward for help. When they are discovered, even the family and everybody will try to keep it a secret rather than send them for treatment, try to deal with it in house. And yes, I could understand that because you do not want to spoil the child's reputation in the community, in the society. So, but there are people like myself who are out there who can help, who you can see confidentially and deal with the problem. There's a child guidance unit in all the schools. They have guidance counselors. That is the reason they are there. So that if you have a young child who you believe be having a problem with drugs or drug addiction, or you have had any reports, sometimes what the parents get to see is only the tip of the iceberg. When you discover it is because it's probably happening a very long time. So you need to pay attention. You need to look at the signs. If your child is, missing out from school, breaking beach, as we used to say, you have to check on their reports, their attendance. They're leaving every day to go to school, but are they in school? Then one way to also verify that is to check their homework book. You know, And that can also reveal a lot of other things. I remember checking one of my children's homework book, and I didn't see any their notebooks, their school books. There were no notes. And I said, but how come? He said, well, the teacher don't give any notes. But this particular child was having difficulty with spelling, so he and I wasn't aware of that. When you can't spell, you can't make notes. I had to do some remedial work, and thank God I picked it up in time and we were able to correct it. But then you also need to check and see their homework book. How come you're not getting any homework at all? Need to call your friends and find out if they're getting homework, or talk to the other parents, because the child probably not in school. Because in this day and age, it is very difficult to assume that the child is not getting any assignments to do at home. Then, growing up in the community in which I grew up in Gandhi village, it was a agrarian little community. People do gardening, and most of the people worked in the estate, cutting cane and so on in the crop time. And there's a very high incidence of drinking alcohol in those days. And now, well, the estate currently material has closed down. But I suppose the demographics have changed and the drug using pattern. But in my days, after work, you'll see all these fellas with their black clothes and everything heading for the rum shop and drinking, some of them until they're drunk in the evening. And I thought as a young man, boy, that was really having a good time. I couldn't wait till I would reach the age to be able to do that as well. So that in some communities, it is normalized, culturally accepted for people to use drugs. In Trinidad, we have a high tolerance for alcoholism and drug addiction, alcoholism in particular. Carnival coming up there, you know what's happening. It is glamorized. If you listen to our chutney singing, you can hardly find one of them without some form of rum in it, rum till I die and all of those things. These speak of what is the general cultural thinking on alcoholism and drug addiction. Children need to learn about, and parents need to also be aware of the long-term consequences. Because I, in my practice here, see a lot of young people, at first, people at the first year of university, A levels, you're just about teenage, heading into young adulthood, starting to drop out of school because, especially since we decriminalized marijuana, a lot of young people are smoking now. And I tried it when I was studying in Jamaica. In Jamaica, you're famous to get some good quality marijuana, and I had heard so much about it. I thought, well, okay. And when you smoke marijuana, yes, I saw, again, coming back to the cultural thing, I saw when I was growing up, the old people in my community in the evening, they'll meet right by our house there in the Around, as we call it, the shed in front. About 6 or 7 of them, and one of them would have a chillum, and one of them will be cutting up the marijuana and the tobacco and mixing it up and so on, and they'll make up a chillum, and then they will treat it ritually. They offer it to the gods, and then they will pass it. There's a way, pass it on the right hand side, and with your 2 hands, and they will light it up and they will smoke. And I remember that. And then after, they will have very profound discussions on, what was even written between the lines of the Mahabharata or the books that they were reading. And it was so glamorized in Jamaica. And I tried it. And yes, under the influence, I could talk a lot of crap about philosophy and this and that. But next day, I couldn't remember one thing. I would read the whole book the night before, whatever, and see so many things in it. But next day, I couldn't reproduce it. I couldn't make sense. Even if I had made notes, I couldn't make sense of what I had written because it affects the brain's ability to remember. And I was doing this as a fully grown adult. I was about 37 or 38 years when I was doing this. So I stopped immediately. I never continued with that. But the young brain is now being developed, and it gets damaged, one. You know, I work at St. Anne's Hospital. I can tell you, I see if anyone who listening to this program, you want to satisfy your curiosity, go to St. Anne's Hospital, take a drive or walk around Ring Road, and you'll see a lot of young people who are there. And most of them are there because of marijuana use, the drug-induced psychosis. If you have a history of mental illness in your family and you smoke marijuana, you can bring it on right away. It's dangerous, but people are not talking about it or they're not playing it down. So that it is important is that parents educate themselves and the young people become aware of the long-term consequences, because this has serious consequences. Marijuana use can decrease your testosterone levels, decrease your production of sperm, and as a result, may create sterility, can make you not be able to have children later on, affect your sexual life. Young men need to be aware of this, women as well, girls as well. So that how do you address these challenges is you have to educate yourself first. And so you need to have open discussions with your children, like I had with my son about the cigarette and the marijuana. You need to engage them in conversation, but to be able to do that, these young people I have found, they educate themselves and find all the justification that they can really run rings around parents. And this is why, if you are not able to do it, then take them to a professional. I don't mind engaging young people. And this is what this program, if you have young people who have questions, text me. And we could deal with it online as well. Because clearly all the research is coming back that marijuana and alcohol and all of these um, drugs are dangerous to the human health. So that some of the things you'd want to do is you want to make sure that you know who your children's friends are. You guide them in that regard, and that they know that they have proper support systems. You know, yes, you can look at television, and children have a tendency now. You need to look at what the programs the young ones, even the younger ones, the 8-year-old, 9-year-old, what they are looking at. Every child now has access to a smartphone. And I have seen my own grandchildren. If you don't give them your smartphone, well, I don't give them my smartphone. I tell them it's not a toy. But if you don't, I see parents, when I invite relatives over, I see the father on the phone, the children on the phone. Only if you engage them in a conversation, they'll talk to you, but they're still looking at the phone. you know so we have to be aware of what children, the content of what children are looking at on their phones, and have some amount of parental guidance. But now it's so difficult because the parents themselves are, everybody is at the dinner table, and there's definitely an addiction to the telephone. Nobody's talking, people are eating and they're head in the phone. And I dare say, even when they want to send a message to somebody across the table, they don't talk to them. They just text it to them, and they see it come up, and they look and they reckon, okay, and so you know, I might be guilty of that myself. I sit in a hammock, and I'm looking at something. I see something interesting, educational, and my wife is in the other hammock, and I'll text and send it to her. You know, the better thing would have been to put down the phone and let's talk about this. Otherwise, people will be. I wonder if in time people will forget how to speak, or they will be more and more unable to listen, because we are gradually reducing our communication skills via oral communication and our listening skills and so on. We are up in the phone and so on, so that we live in a society where in Trinidad and Tobago, there's not a shortage of reasons for people to drink. Our children are growing up seeing they're socialized into this culture, so that we the adults. First, to have the moral authority to correct a young person, we have to correct ourselves. So that today I feel a sense of adequacy because I have stopped drinking and smoking cigarettes. So I can speak to anyone on the subject, and I advise them from my own personal experience. And this is one of the reasons that Alcoholics Anonymous is so effective, because the people who are carrying the message of sobriety are themselves sober. They've been there, done that. So they speak with a certain level of passion and conviction and integrity. And I think this is probably why the medical profession and even the church is not as effective, because unfortunately a lot of our priests and pundits were not alcoholics. They speak to it from that subject from their imagination and their education. They can give information, but they are kind of short on experience. So to do with the doctors. And I've heard my colleagues say, but you don't have to have a heart attack to be a good cardiac surgeon. While that might be true for surgery, it does not always hold true for drug addiction. I have seen, and it is established, a proven fact, that people in recovery are much more able to reach other people. And this hence the reason for the success that we see in Alcoholics Anonymous. And as we speak about that, I want to let our listening, before we end this program, know that we are very fortunate in Trinidad and Tobago that we have the highest proliferation of AA groups per capita than any other country in the world. We have over 100 AA groups. We have now NA groups, Narcotics Anonymous. And we have online AA meetings, so that those of you who do not, because of the stigma, do not feel comfortable to go to the school where they have the meeting, like in Felicity where I live, you have a meeting at the Mahasabha school on a Sunday evening at 6. You have one at the Presbyterian school on Monday at 7. Then on Wednesday, there's a meeting in the farmlands here at 7. Friday at the Mahasabha school, again, Felicity in the school, there's a meeting at 7. Saturday night, again, at the Presbyterian school, there's another meeting at 7. And these meetings are well within walking distance to all the people in Felicity, because these schools are located in the middle of the community. And so too, we have meetings online where you can stay in the comfort of your home, sit on your couch, go on your cell phone, your smartphone, once you have internet, and you can access an AA meeting online. At these meetings, you do not have to show your face. You do not have to put your correct name either. A lot of people have short names. You can put that if you want, or you can put a number if you wish. And you can listen to the meeting. Yes, because of the trolling, sometimes the chairman may ask, the host may ask you individually, well, who are you? It's because some people hack into these meetings sometimes, and may even display obscenities and so on. So to control for those things. But basically the meetings are safe. They use the same application that I am using to do this program, the Zoom application. And it is free. All you have to do is go on the internet, download the Zoom app. You can get that from your Play Store, and if you have an iPhone or your Samsung, you can go to your apps and download the Zoom app, and you can register, and you can access these meetings not only in Trinidad. There are meetings worldwide that you can access all time of the day because of the time difference. There are meetings way into the middle of the night, 2 o'clock in the morning, wherever, and all you have to do is type your search bar to Alcoholics Anonymous meetings, and it will take you to the various sites where there are meetings that you can access. All you have to do is put in the ID number and the password. Some of them don't even have a password, and you can access the meeting and you can benefit. I want to say finally that Alcoholics Anonymous has had the highest success rate in the world. It could be found in 189 countries. I understand there's 190 countries now that it could be found in worldwide, and it is also accessible online. So if anyone wants any further information about this, you can call me on the numbers on your screen, 671-3040, or you can text me at 768-5925, and I'll be happy to give you this information. And if you have any questions about anything said in this program, you can raise it with me after, and I'll be happy to engage you and to give you the best of my thinking on it. For all of you people who are staying sober, who's struggling with it, I want to encourage you. Remember, you just do this one day at a time. No matter how influential a person is, rich, powerful, whatever, all of us only have today. The vagrant has today, and you have today. So all we have to do is not to use drugs today. And that same strategy can work with any other addiction, whether you're addicted to chocolate, cigarette, these energy drinks, whatever the addiction, or any behavior that you feel that you are powerless over, gambling or one of those things. All you have to do is you pray to God of your own understanding, your higher power, ask them for help, and you do this one day at a time. Days will grow into weeks, weeks into months, and months into years. So that again, I want to thank you for listening to this program. To remind you again, this program will be on next week, Thursday. It is going to be posted on YouTube and Facebook at the end. It will also be repeated on radio and TV Jagriti at 10 p.m. tonight. So until next week, see you, have a good week, and thank you for joining me.